In this video, we're going to talk about whether Christian nationalism is actually Christian. I mean, I hope you guys know the answer to this question, but we're going to talk about it because I think it's important to defend your faith and to defend what the word says, which is what your faith is based on, isn't it? I hope so, because if you believe in any other gospel, you've believed in vain. We're just going to take a look at what Google has to say about what Christian nationalism is. It says, Christian nationalism is a political ideology that fuses Christian identity with national identity, particularly in the context of the United States. That's interesting that they use fuses, conflates, maybe. It asserts that the United States is inherently a Christian nation founded by and for Christians, and that its laws and policies should reflect Christian values. This often involves advocating for the preferential treatment of Christianity, including its influence on education, public life, and government. Proponents believe the U.S. was founded on Christian principles and that its laws and culture should reflect this. I once believed this, by the way, stupidly. Christian nationalists advocate for a closer relationship between Christianity and the state, potentially leading to policies that favor Christian values and institutions. By the way, anytime this has ever happened, it hasn't been good. You know, in England, throughout Europe, this is how, the Spanish Inquisition came to power. It's not been a good thing. And Babylon is defined in Revelation 17 as a woman church who is riding a beast, government. The woman, the church, is controlling government. This is not a good thing. And it wasn't a good thing when Catholicism was in power. You know, that kingdom that started this kingdom of falsehood with the prostitutes that bore out of her who continue in her prostitutions, and the false prophet of the United States, and counterfeit Israel, the image of the Antichrist. Is it a good thing that religion is driving a genocide? Are you kidding me? It's a pretty profound and persuasive narrative that it could justify genocide. The Antichrist is not even reigning yet. The Antichrist is in power, but it's not reigning yet, and this is what you're seeing. How much worse will it be in 2 months when the Antichrist rises and kills the witnesses and goes after you? You think this is bad now? Wait until he goes after you. They promote certain Christian values such as traditional family structures and moral codes as the foundation for society. That doesn't sound bad, right? But here's the thing. Did Jesus force what he was teaching on other nations, or did he submit to the emperor, pay his taxes to the emperor, give the emperor his rights? And I'm not saying submit to the emperor as though the emperor is God. I'm talking about he stayed within what he was required to do. And we're not talking about where the nations that are ruling over you are telling you to do something in opposition to God's law, right? Okay, so let's not conflate that, because some very stupid people do that. The Bible is not telling you to submit to man over God. Otherwise, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego wouldn't have gone into the furnace, would they? But they specifically said, we're not going to bow down to your God. Our God has the ability to save us. But even if he doesn't save us, we're not going to bow down to your God. Listen to what Jesus said in Matthew 17. After Jesus and the disciples arrived in Capernaum, the collectors of the 2 drachma temple tax came to Peter and asked, "Doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax?" "Yes, he does," he replied. When Peter came into the house, Jesus was the first to speak. "What do you think, Simon?" he asked. "From whom do the kings of the earth collect duty and taxes? From their own children or from others?" "From others," Peter answered. "Then the children are exempt." Jesus said to him, "But so that we may not cause offense, go to the lake and throw out your line. Take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find a 4 drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and yours." So we as Christians have been commanded to not do anything where people would be able to talk about us. By the way, they're going to talk about you. But we're saying what the word says is don't do anything that you would be found guilty where they could slander you. You might be found guilty under human law, but found guilty in the sight of God. So you're supposed to represent the image of God. And so Jesus is submitting himself to the law where it does not conflict with God's law. You understand? the apostles were preaching a message that they were being held as being in contempt of the rules that the Pharisees had set out. Did they stop? What did Peter say? He said, are we going to listen to man or are we going to listen to God? We're going to listen to God, thank you very much. So while this sounds sweet, they promote certain Christian values such as the traditional family, structures, and moral codes as the foundation for society. Jesus didn't force any of this on anyone. He said, my sheep know my voice, and he didn't waste time with people who didn't know his voice. He rebuked them, and he kept it moving. And this is also what he taught his apostles to do. He said, when you come to a house that is deserving of your peace, let your peace rest on it. And if it's not, dust your feet in protest against them. Now contrast that with the things that Christian nationalism does, imposing and forcing. This is what the Antichrist does, guys. This is what the Antichrist did the first time through the harlot Catholic Church in things like the Spanish Inquisition, slaughtering everyone who would not submit to their version of so-called Christianity. That's not what Jesus did. Google goes on to say, critics argue that Christian nationalism can undermine religious freedom for those outside of Christianity and create a climate of discrimination. Well, yeah. The ideology can exacerbate social divisions by elevating one religious group above others and potentially leading to the exclusion of those who do not share those beliefs. I mean, I don't know if any of you have read Project 2025, but hello. The weird thing is, all of these counterfeit Christians with their image of the cross around their necks are saying, oh no, we're including everybody. No, you're not, because your ideology is going to conflict with others. And it's very clear that by the genocide that you support, you don't support everybody. You think that certain people are deserving of murder and being bombed and starved to death and raped. Examples of Christian nationalists, beliefs and actions. So they advocate for prayers in schools. This is seen as a way to promote Christian values and make Christianity more visible in public life. Okay, but that should be a choice. It shouldn't be something imposed on people. And by the way, I don't want anyone teaching my child about Christianity, their version of Christianity, ever. Especially at this time of deception, especially since the word says, many are called but few are chosen. I don't want those people who haven't been chosen teaching my child anything. Y'all better think about sending your children away to go be taught during the day and figure out a way to raise the children God gave you. Yeah, it's going to require a lifestyle change. They also promote specific interpretations of history. Christian nationalists may argue that the founding fathers intended for the U.S. to be a Christian nation. Now, I'm going to tell you my understanding about this. Christians were being persecuted all throughout Europe. There are people who came to the Americas escaping religious persecution so that they could worship God truly and escape that oppression and coercion. And God provides everything, so clearly God provided a place for people to come and worship freely and not be persecuted. And that's for everyone. Doesn't matter what your race is. Whether or not the founding fathers were experiencing that, that's a totally different thing. And yes, there were some Catholics who came to the Americas, but for a long time, the United States of America was an anti-Catholic nation because they actually remembered what the Catholic Church had done. It was kind of fresh in their minds. But actually what the founding fathers did was they advocated for a separation of church and state because of what the Catholic Church, the Antichrist, the kingdom that started this Antichrist of false religion, because of what they were doing. The word is true. As a dog returns to its vomit, and a sow that is washed returns to her wallowing in the mud. This is what these people do. They forget history conveniently, and they create their own. Now, since God gave a place for people to go and worship freely, does that mean that this is then one nation under God? This is an extra nation set up side by side by some counterfeit Israel that was established in 1948 in the Middle East? Is that what that means? Oh, there's two nations now? Well, where does God talk about this other nation? The only place he talks about it is in the false prophet. It's a false narrative. He does not talk about a second nation. He has one spiritual nation that is Israel. And it doesn't exist in a location. It's throughout the world. When he comes, he's going to pull us from the four corners of the earth. What do we not understand about that? That's not the Middle East. Israel is a spiritual nation comprised of people who are in the covenant of circumcision, which is circumcision of the heart, not the body. And certainly not ethnicity, or he wouldn't say in Revelation 2 and 3 that there's a group of people claiming to be Jews, though they are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. You'd just whip out your 23andMe, wouldn't you? Turns out that's not the criteria. They support policies that restrict LGBTQ plus rights. Well, listen, I'm not in favor of advocating for LGBTQ plus anything, but I also don't have a right to restrict anything. Yes, it is distressing to me and grievous to see men with full beards in muumuus at Home Depot like I saw a couple years ago. But you know what I cry about? The things I cry about that I feel so distressed in my soul about are counterfeit Christians. Because those other people don't know better. But these people claim to know. And that's why they're guilty. And you have no idea how difficult it's been for me for the last 3.5 years to preach a message that no one will accept because they are so married to their false narratives about what Christianity is. They actively oppose secularism and pluralism. You know, if you want to go live in a remote area and you want to have a community in which this is the way that you live, that's a different thing. But you can't impose it on other people. You don't have a right to do that. If Jesus didn't have a right to do that, and he extended an offer that at the end of the age, you either accepted it or you didn't, and then judgment is going to be brought on you if you didn't accept it. That is not the same thing as Jesus coming here and saying everyone needs to do this. But that is what Christian nationalism is doing. So some of these things might sound correct, they might sound sweet, they might sound like something that you think that you're supposed to do. And at one time, even though God had already led me out of voting because we were never supposed to want a human king, and God's the one who sets up kings and he's the one who deposes them. I don't believe in this voting system. I'm not going to put my hope and my faith in a human being who I already know is corrupt. That's absurd. So I stopped voting. But at that time, I remember, and I cringe about this now, even saying on the channel, if I were to vote, I would vote right because it's more in line with with what God commands. I don't agree with that anymore. Frankly, I do not agree with it. It's pretty scary when the pagans are more righteous than those calling themselves Christian. The one thing that I would say that should be strictly prohibited is murder. Murder of a fetus, murder of a full-grown adult, no difference. That should be strictly prohibited. That should not be legal. But as far as ideology, you can't force your ideology on other people, forcing them to memorize the Bible and putting up the 10 Commandments in a classroom, a secular classroom, a public school. Not that I would send my child to a public school anyway, to go be raised for 8-9 hours and taught by somebody else. No thanks. That is not something that anybody who's been drawn to Christ should be okay with. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is not in line with what God commands. It's not in line with what he did, and it's not in line with what he taught. His sheep know his voice. And so this goes for you as well, and I know this is going to be difficult for you to accept, and it's been difficult for me to accept as well. But among your the people you've been calling your friends, your acquaintances, your family members, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to share my testimony with you, that the very people who I thought were Christian, who call themselves Christian, are less likely to accept the things that are actually in the Bible than those who don't. And than those who have lived some pretty rough lives. Because people who've lived rough lives, just like Jesus said, who's going to love God more? The one with the greater debt or the one with the lesser debt? The one with the greater debt, right? If he forgives that greater debt. And so the people who've been through stuff in their lives, they want healing so bad, and they haven't been able to find it in the world. And when they hear this message of hope, they accept it more deeply and plant it more deeply than those whitewashed, militarized Christians. And I say militarized Christians because they live very rigid lifestyles. There's also always some Christian radio station on their, in their car. They've got Bibles everywhere. They read every new book that comes out by the so-called Christian teachers. Give me a break. And they like to sit around talking about the people who do drugs and have sex. They're just sheltered. And they have a completely false definition of Christianity that has come from a pastor at a pulpit, not from the Word of God, not from sitting in his council, not from worshiping him in the truth and in the Spirit. Jesus wasn't trying to convert the Pharisees or lord anything over them or force them into anything. He is waiting for the judgment. He said his sheep know his voice and they follow him. And so we need not do that. It doesn't matter how much you love your family members. I'm sorry to say this, but it doesn't matter how much you love them. I am the oldest sibling of 7 siblings. Not one of them accepts what I say. You think I don't love my siblings? My parents are dead. They're all I have here. And yet I don't talk to them because they don't accept these things. And I'm going to be dead in 2 months, and I won't know, on my way out, I won't know what will even happen to them. But they don't accept the truth. His sheep know his voice, and they follow him. They have interest in him. They want to have these conversations. They want to change their lives. Listen to what I say, as difficult as it is. Because it is a difficult covenant. It is hard for the righteous to be saved. You should not think that this is going to be easy. You should not start celebrating because you popped out of water. You should not think that you're already saved. You should not think that you are a new creation because you popped out of water. It's ridiculous. You need to repent and become a new creation through the ministry of the Holy Spirit. You did not change. I know a lot of people who popped out of water, myself included. I popped out of water at one time. I didn't change. I went to a counterfeit Christian university in graduate school with a bunch of people who got drunk, had premarital sex, did all of the things that we read about, that Paul talked about. Did they change? How are you a new creation when you're doing that? How are you a new creation when you continue to wear a cross around your neck? How are you a new creation when you go to a counterfeit church? How are you a new creation when you don't know what Paul said about in 1 Corinthians 14 about what your obligation is to the body, to assemble and to be used to teach, to speak a message, to bring something to build up the body? How are you a new creation? You're not being led by God. You're not being led by his word. You're being led astray by false teachers that you have placed before God. Christian nationalism is not Christianity. Christian Zionism is not Christianity, guys. Christian nationalists are worshiping and pledging allegiance to a physical nation, to a worldly nation, not a spiritual nation. It's ridiculous. They're campaigning for the Antichrist, for a combination of church and state. Christian Zionism is worshiping the image of Israel, the image of the Antichrist, which is counterfeit Israel. They claim things like Pete Sessions said in a documentary that Al Jazeera put out, who says this entire matter of us supporting is what he calls Israel, which is not the Israel of the Bible. The entire matter is based on not only on faith in our Creator, but on faith in a chosen people. Do you understand what's wrong about that? Faith in a chosen people? First of all, no human being can save you. Jesus is the only one. His sacrifice is the only thing that's going to save you. What do you mean, faith of a chosen people? Second of all, why are you not testing the spirit of those people? They are sitting in courts fighting about whether it's okay to rape a man with a stick and justifying that they can do anything they want to Amalek. That is not a chosen people. That is the devil. That is the image of the Antichrist. Please discern this message with God.